The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining us this Monday evening. And tonight we've got a special guest with us, one of the best damn film breakers in the game right now, No Flags Film. Thank you for joining me on the show tonight, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, it's definitely not the way we wanted to start the season. Of course, I'd say for a lot of teams it's the same way. And we've got a lot of stories to break down, and we're going to go ahead and jump into it, and let's throw down. So starting out with breaking news today, it would appear that Ryan Fitzpatrick will be out for about 6 to 8 weeks with a lower body injury, and the Washington football team is basically in dire need of trying to keep that quarterback position filled, and can they do it with a backup? What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel, first of all, I mean, obviously bad for Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I feel bad for Terry McLaurin. He's kind of getting into Allen Robinson territory of being a great receiver who just never has a good quarterback throwing to him. I actually really liked what I saw from Taylor Heineke, though, in the playoffs and the end of the season last year. So I think it will give them a good opportunity to see if they have anything with Taylor Heineke. They're kind of in a tough situation, though, with or without Ryan Fitzpatrick, where they're pretty much in quarterback purgatory because the roster's so good, but they're just never going to be drafting in a position where they can get one of those elite guys. So I think, obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick probably gives them a better chance to win. But as far as the long-term outlook for them at quarterback, I think it's not that great regardless.
And already just toting a stout defense on their end, it definitely helps kind of take the blow off the quarterback position. But do you feel that maybe down the road that they might try and address this, especially with Aaron Rodgers possibly being a free agent?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to be one of probably a lot of teams that is going after Aaron Rodgers, assuming that he's leaving Green Bay. Um, as far as like addressing it through trade or anything like that, I mean, you're looking at guys like Marcus Mariota, not really the caliber of quarterback that I think is going to be able to elevate them towards being a yearly Super Bowl contender. I'm sure that they'll do their best to try to address it, but their best bet is really like trying to make a play for a quarterback in the draft, whether it's trading up or maybe they sort of luck into like a Justin Fields situation where a really good quarterback prospect falls to them.
And of course, that will definitely continue to be monitored. Fitzpatrick will be about 6 to 8 weeks, and hopefully, the Washington football team will still be in a position to make the playoffs. Also on the injury list, just Jerry Jeudy from the Denver Broncos with a high ankle sprain. They're talking about 4 to 6 weeks he will be out. And how do you think this is going to affect their chances trying to make one of these wild card spots?
Yeah, well, when I saw he was getting carted off, I was kind of just defaulted to expecting that it was a season-ending thing. So that's really good that it's just a 4 to 6 week thing. I think that with Cortland Sutton and KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick, and then they've got two really good tight ends, I think they should be okay in the meantime as far as they have a lot of weapons that can keep that offense going. I was pretty pleasantly surprised by Teddy Bridgewater. I thought he played a lot better than I expected him to. So I don't think that in the long term as far as competing for a wild card spot, I don't think it should have too big of an impact there.
And once again, the team with a very talented young defense, or at least experienced defense, they do have an opportunity to excel this year. So you kind of just feel if they can have the right pieces and if the schedule falls in place, they definitely have a chance to compete for one of those spots. But do you think he could get back in time and possibly, help contribute with that going forward, or would that be a hindrance?
You kind of cut out. Are you asking if Jerry Judy could get back in time?
Yes.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I I'm not like a medical expert or anything, so
And we may have some technical difficulties. All right. Are we there?
yeah,
All right. We just had to freeze up on us, but we'll make this work.
no problem.
Bad connections. That's on my end. I'll own up on that. I Taylor won this, so I'll own up to it.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi is kicking my ass. But also in injury news, we have Jeff Okoua.
Jeff Fukuda.
Yes, thank you. He will be out for the year. I believe it was
It,
ACL.
it was a ruptured Achilles.
All right. And it's very misfortunate, especially after the horrendous year he had, and this was especially looking to be a bounce back year for him.
Hmm.
So, do you think that Detroit is going to have to start looking down the road and possibly find a replacement for him, especially in the position that he's been in, that he just can't try and get his feet on the ground?
Yeah, that's Achilles is a really tough one because it's unlike ACL. It's something where usually you don't see guys come back as the same player. I think Jeff Okuda is kind of one of the best examples of like why you should be have like some humility as somebody that evaluates draft prospects, because if you go back and watch Jeff Okuda's college film, he was pretty much like a perfect prospect just as far as technique and athleticism and size, and he gets into the NFL and just for whatever reason his game doesn't translate. And so Akuda's kind of the perfect example of why like there's only you can only really be so accurate with evaluating draft prospects. Once they get to the NFL, there's so much that's just completely out of your hands as far as their own development, the coaching that they get, the work ethic, and all that sort of thing. I have no idea what Jeff Okuda's issues are behind the scenes, but yeah, an Achilles injury is something that will definitely make it a lot more difficult for him to bounce back. I think that Detroit, like most teams, is a team that should always be looking to upgrade the cornerback position. There's only really, I would say, Denver and Miami are the only two teams that are set at corner. I think every team should always be looking to upgrade that position and throw resources at it every year.
Well, I'd even go as bold and say Pittsburgh's one of the other teams I'd add at the corner position. But moving forward in the news, also, it looks possible that the Denver Broncos may be selling the team by 2022, with a report coming out saying that Jeff Bezos and Jay Z are potential buyers for the team. I'm not surprised that Bezos getting this kind of attention. It seems like the last couple of years, NFL teams have kind of tied themselves to his name. Uh, how would you feel about that kind of fit?
Um, well, I don't know. I it would I guess it would just depend on. It's hard to like evaluate an owner. It would just depend on if he was willing to like provide the resources that they needed to be a successful team. I guess from the standpoint of a Broncos fan, my main concern would be like I don't really care, or at least I'll say like from the perspective of a Titans fan, I don't really care who owns the team as long as they stay in Nashville. That's always been one of my biggest fears, is that a team that I liked moved to a different city, because it would uh, I feel like be pretty difficult to like remain as big of a fan if they left Tennessee. But yeah, I mean that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to monitor. I feel like every year there's kind of some news about like some um, really popular billionaire like looking into buying an NFL team. So we'll see if anything materializes on that front.
Well, if it's anything like he runs his companies, I'd be terrified if I was the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
All right, and we're going to break down some of the scores from yesterday. Monday night or Sunday night's game with the Bears and the Rams. Rams 34, Chicago 14. I was really shocked. I was really surprised, really, at how Matthew Stafford handled himself. And of course, Sean McVay being a quarterback guru, it was obvious as soon as he got his hands on a quarterback he could work with, you kind of felt that maybe this could help things and they could take off from what Jared Goff wasn't giving them. Do you think it's sustainable success right now?
Yeah, I think definitely. I was a big fan of the move to go and get Matthew Stafford. You see, with I think it was the second or third offensive play of the game, that touchdown to Van Jefferson. That's not really a throw that Jared Goff can make consistently. So I think he definitely raises the ceiling of that offense. I think from the Bears' perspective, it's frustrating as a fan of a team other than the Bears. When I'm watching the Bears, I want entertaining football, so I want Justin Fields to be playing. I'm just not really sure what their kind of strategy is, because they don't have a roster that can compete with Andy Dalton as quarterback. Their secondary is not good. Khalil Mack isn't, he's still a great edge rusher, but he's not the dominant force that he was a few years ago. And the offensive line is really bad. So it's a pretty mediocre roster. To me, the point of this season for Chicago should be figuring out if you have something in Justin Fields. And so, in my opinion, any time that you've got Andy Dalton out on the field is just a waste.
Agreed. And I think eventually we will see Fields possibly sooner than later. It's just all a matter of time. It just if Andy Dalton can hold himself together, which historically he's had trouble doing.
Yeah.
Also, looking at some of the scores, we had Kansas City with a massive comeback over Cleveland, 33 to 29, and no surprise. It just seems like whenever Kansas City gets himself in a hole, they are able to just find a way to win the game, and it's just another testament to Andy Reid's brilliant coaching.
Mhm.
Do you think they were going to have a lot of trouble this season, probably coming back with some of these games, especially down the road with the schedule that they have?
I think that anytime you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be in games a lot later than most teams will be. Um, I think that obviously Andy Reid is one of the best coaches, and with what they did to upgrade the offensive line, and then you've got, in my opinion, the best receiver and best tight end in football. You just have the offensive firepower to really stay in any game.
But I will give Cleveland their due as well. I mean, they had a chance to win the game, and it just shows Baker Mayfield continues to grow as a quarterback, but is it going to be consistent enough, especially from some of the criticism it gets?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Baker Mayfield had an outstanding game. They really, outside of that dropped punt, they really kind of like did everything right. It was just, I mean, that's got to be frustrating as a Browns fan or as a member of the Browns organization to watch that. It seems like Patrick Mahomes kind of just has that luck with him.
And once again, we'll just keep an eye on Cleveland. They have a rough schedule, but with a very easy division and some teams still growing, it's pretty obvious they have a good shot at winning their division.
Hmm.
Also, looking at some of the other games of the afternoon, you had Miami and New England. Miami pulling an upset, 17 to 16, and Miami is definitely one of the teams people are keeping an eye on. And I feel that they'll definitely be a wild card the way they continue to play on defense, and Tua Tagovailoa continues to grow. Do you think they're almost there? Maybe they're a 1 year away from contending?
Uh, I'm still not really sold on Tua. I thought that they were one of the teams that a lot of people thought was going to or think is going to make the playoffs that I'm not so sure on. Their defense is really good, but anytime you have a team that forces a ton of turnovers, that's kind of one of the least stable statistics from year to year. So it's fair to expect some regression on that front. And then the offensive line is still a liability to me. Um, Obviously, great job by them to get the win against New England yesterday, but I would still probably pick New England to finish above Miami in that division.
It definitely makes for a more interesting AFC East race. Buffalo definitely being the favorites, but like you said, I do think it will be interesting for the 2 spot as they
Mm-hmm.
go forward. And also a few more games we'll look at. New Orleans and Green Bay, which was shocking for a lot of people. Jameis Winston coming out of nowhere and throwing 5 touchdown passes. Who saw that coming?
Yeah. Well, I do weekly power ranking videos, and I was in the week one edition. I was talking about about the best offseason move that each team made, and I said for New Orleans it was choosing Jameis Winston over Taysom Hill, um, just because selfishly I was excited to see Jameis Winston in a offense that was designed a lot better for him. I think with Sean Payton prioritizing the short to intermediate passing game can really kind of uh, hold in some of Jameis's turnovers. And so, yeah, that's a really interesting team because they're kind of like this is kind of the last year that they can make it all work with the salary cap, but they still have a really good roster. The secondary was outstanding yesterday, and Jameis Winston just did a really good job of kind of playing pretty conservative, and then making big time throws when he was asked to. And I think the Packers will be fine. Pretty similar to the Titans. I think that obviously a pretty bad showing, but you shouldn't be pressing the panic button after week one.
Agreed. And with the Saints, I definitely just give a lot of credit, especially with Sean Payton and Pete Carmichael, his offensive coordinator, that their system just continues to work
Mm-hmm.
with finding the right quarterback. And how lucky can Sean Payton be to just have these guys fall in his lap now?
Yeah.
And I think the other games of interest we had Pittsburgh upsetting Buffalo 23-16, Philly annihilating Atlanta 32-6, Carolina beating the Jets 19-14, and I was really happy for Sam Darnold that he had a good showing, and it definitely had to feel really good sticking it to your former team.
Yeah, for sure.
San Francisco beating poor little Detroit 41-33. Seattle handling business against Indy 28-16. That definitely has to make you feel good if you're a Titans fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chargers winning over Washington 20-16. And one of the stories of interest at FedEx Field was the sewage pipe that busted all over those poor fans.
Yeah, man, that's disgusting.
And that just goes to show might be time to move.
Yeah,
If you can't even sit in the stands and not have crap dumped all over you, I don't know what to tell you.
true.
But then again, I'm pretty sure that's how Oakland fans feel, so that's
Yeah.
probably nothing new for them. Well, all right, everybody. We've gone through all our news and our scores. We'll take a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, we'll break down the Titans and Arizona game. Unfortunately, it won't be fast, but it won't be slow either. We'll get through it. I promise it'll be okay. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power. Back in 30. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining us this Monday evening. I've got my guest with me, No Flags Film, and he's going to be with us the whole show. And once again, thank you for joining us. It's always great to have everybody on here. And don't forget, if you love the show, help it grow. Please like and subscribe today. Check me out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell. I'll also be on Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch at the Power Hour 615. And of course, I've got to let my friend No Flags Film give a shout out where you can find him. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, YouTube, No Flags Film, and Twitter, No Flags Film, for in-depth breakdowns of everything involving the Titans.
He's one of the best film breakers in the game right now. This guy's going places, so trust me. Glad to have him on this show before he gets big and forgets about us little guys. Well, all right. Just deep breath, everybody. We're going to break down the Titans and Arizona game. And I promise you, we'll get through it. It'll be okay. You came into this with high expectations. Everyone knew that this was going to be a very challenging game on some fronts. But I don't think anyone knew or could even fathom just how bad this was going to fall apart. And I guess the best place to start would be with the biggest problem, and that would be with the offensive line. The running game just couldn't get established. Tannehill was under duress all day, and Chandler Jones basically earned his money. So, No Flags, what would you say the Titans are going to have to do on the offensive line to try and improve and get ready for a major game out west with Seattle?
Well, you obviously have the individual issues, which is that Taylor Lewan played poorly, Nate Davis played poorly as well. But to me, it ultimately falls on Todd Downing. Uh, One of the ways that Tennessee was able to kind of hide their weaker offensive line last season is by doing a lot of play action boot that moved the pocket, and having tight ends chip block to help protect their tackles. And they didn't move the pocket really at all this game, and they didn't start sending chip help really until the second half. Um, they were just extremely predictable, doing a lot of slow developing plays from under center. And, um, when we were running the ball, the offensive line wasn't getting any push. And when we were doing play action off of that, Tannehill would turn around and there would immediately be a pass rusher, usually Chandler Jones, right in his face. So obviously, you know, uh, I expect Taylor Lewan to bounce back from this game. Nate Davis has never been a good pass protector. He's actually been one of the worst pass protectors in the NFL throughout his career. So that's going to continually be something that he needs to improve. But ultimately, if Tennessee, who doesn't really have a great pass protecting offensive line to begin with, if they're going to have a good offense, it's going to have to fall on Todd Downing to put them in situations where they can mitigate that issue.
And it would definitely seem that the team really went away from the play action pass. Do you think that's something they're going to have to try and incorporate a little more, or is it going to be a situation where Coach Vrabel's going to have to trust in Tannehill and just let him run the offense?
Well, after about 4 drives, they pretty much just moved into the shotgun and, abandoned the play action pass, which I think was the correct adjustment because, like I was talking about, play action is a slow developing play, and they would do the play fake. Ryan Tannehill would turn around and the pass rush would already be there. So if you can't protect for that extra second or two to let the play action develop, then you're not going to be able to run play action effectively.
And our friend Titans Time podcast coming on and leaving comments, and yes, we agree. The offensive line was so bad. But from your perspective, who do you think is the best players to line up on the offensive line for next week? If you had to build this offensive line and feel confident about it, who would be up there protecting Tannehill?
I would still go with the same five. I would go Lewan, Saffold, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, and David Questenberry. I was someone that thought Kendall Lamb could be a good right tackle. He still could be, I guess, but what we saw yesterday was pretty brutal, and David Questenberry held up relatively well. So I would still go with the same five. I don't think it's time to make any you know sudden changes or anything like that.
But you definitely get the sense with Seattle's defense, I don't think they're as good as Arizona's, but they're still decent enough. If these woes continue, possibly after that game, would you possibly take a shot at signing a veteran at that point, like a Mitchell Schwartz?
Um, Mitchell Schwartz is interesting. He's kind of, I'm not sure that he would actually be too much of an upgrade given that he's coming off of an injury and he seems to be pretty fully retired. I mean, I've listened to a couple podcasts in the last few weeks that he's been on. He seems to be like fully getting into the media game. I think that between David Questenberry, Dylan Radins, Ty Sambrillo, and Kendall Lamb, if you can't find an answer at right tackle with those four, then that's not a personnel issue. That's a coaching issue. And there's generally just not offensive tackles just sitting out there on the street or available for trade that are going to be a big upgrade. Like really no teams in the NFL have offensive line depth, and teams that do aren't usually trying to get rid of their offensive line depth. So um, I think Titans fans should pretty much expect the roster offensive line wise to be pretty much as it is right now.
So down the road, you don't expect Dylan Radins to actually have a chance to possibly give a shot at that position, especially with a lot of people saying, would it be the best opportunity right now, especially after a loss, to let some of your rookie players get in and get some playing time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if Dylan Radins plays, it'll be at guard, and I don't see him beating out Nate Davis or Roger Saffold. What we saw from him at right tackle in the Tampa Bay preseason game was pretty bad. So I think that he might be just kind of a developmental project at this point.
Indeed, and I think eventually down the road we'll probably see him get a little more playing time, but it may go a little quicker if the offensive line doesn't have any improvement and you're forced to make those kind of moves.
Hmm.
And moving to the defense, it was really wishy-washy and a tale of two halves. In the first half, it seemed they were just getting beat by Hopkins and Green. And in the second half, they'd made some pretty good adjustments, but it was the offense that just wasn't helping them out. So, who's the players that really needed to try and get a little more improvement going into next week, especially with a dynamic Russell Wilson that they know they're going to have to try and slow down?
Um, well, to me, the players that were the most unimpressive were Bud Dupree, Danico Autry, Rashawn Evans, Jayon Brown. I thought that Harold Landry actually had a pretty nice game rushing the passer, but Bud Dupree wasn't able to generate much pressure at all. Autry was pretty much a non-factor when he came in, and I think Jeffrey Simmons got one sack. It was he pretty much had a clear path to the quarterback off of a well-designed stunt, but just in the one-on-one battles, he wasn't able to generate that much pressure either. The cornerbacks are kind of difficult to evaluate from the broadcast footage, so I'll have to wait until the all 22 comes out to make any big conclusions off of that. But I thought Christian Fulton had an excellent game,
I
and I
agree.
thought that Jack Rabbit Jenkins, despite giving up some plays, I thought he actually played uh, a significantly better than the stat sheet would show. A lot of a lot of those plays sort of came down more to DeAndre Hopkins making really good catches. If you look at that touchdown in the back of the end zone, it was pretty good coverage by Jenkins. He was right there the whole time, but it was just a incredible throw and catch. So I thought that the secondary, obviously, like I said, I need to watch the all 22 to be sure, but I thought the secondary was um, not too bad. But to me, the biggest issue was the pass rush and the linebackers.
I would especially throw Rashawn Evans into the mix, where it
Oh,
just
for
seems
sure.
once again he's a non-factor in these games, and it's a position of importance where you have a guy that's supposed to step up and be the leader, but hasn't yet taken that role. Do you think it might be time to let Monty Rice have a shot at some of these snaps,
I would definitely be a proponent of letting Monty Rice have those snaps for sure.
especially showing strong preseason stats? I think at this point you kind of have to just shake things up a little bit on some of these spots,
Hmm.
and just the whole goal that we're trying to accomplish is to make the playoffs. But right now it's trying to win a game. And from what we saw yesterday, there's just a lot of rust, and I think people can contribute that on play calling and even in playing. I mean, does this actually just prove the point that sometimes you should let your starters play in the preseason to let them get adjusted to the game?
Um, I'm not sure. I mean, it's that's kind of a difficult thing to evaluate. I'm not sure how much one drive would really do to help break these guys in, and you compare that with what would happen if someone got injured in the preseason. I'm still kind of in the camp of resting starters during the preseason. I think if anything, the
And I think we just lost No Flags film. And we'll have him coming back up shortly. And I'll read a comment while I'm waiting from our buddy Titans Time podcast. Seeing a couple of the plays that Jenkins gave up, he had fell down on. He fell on the Cardinals' first offensive play where D Hop had the big gain, and then the offensive half fell again on a short catch. And I'd agree with that. Jenkins definitely had some problems, but for the most part, even after giving up those plays, I felt he was able to try and just kind of bounce back, even from just all the damage that had been done. And I think we've got No Flags film back. Sorry about the problems, buddy. We're
no problem.
just it's Sunday all over again, and it's
Yeah,
just the Wi-Fi's turn to do it.
all good.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead with your thought.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much of my answer you heard, but I think that I'm not sure that having like one or two drives together in the preseason would have really had that much of an effect on how prepared they were. Offensively, I think the main issue was the offensive line and the play calling. So,
And hopefully it's something that gets rectified very quickly. But at the same time, you have fans that are panicking right now and abandoning the season where it's woe is me and gloom and doom. And I know we all hear it and we kind of get tired of it. But at the same time, it just amazes me at just how quickly people will just kind of just get so depressed that they're ready to abandon ship. What's one positive thing you can give people that they can actually kind of build a little momentum on as the season progresses? And you saw yesterday that was a little encouraging.
well, I mean, I think to me the far and away the biggest positive was Christian Fulton. I thought he just had an excellent game all around. I thought AJ Brown played really well. And I thought that Ryan Tannehill throwing the ball played really well. His interception was tipped. A couple of his other inaccurate passes were tipped at the line of scrimmage. The main issue with Tannehill is not a new issue for him. It's just having that pocket awareness. He was kind of a sitting duck and just not really expecting the pass rush. But I thought overall, Ryan Tannehill played pretty well. And the other thing is, it doesn't seem like we came away from the game with many like big injuries, so you can always be thankful for that. I think that if you just take any of Tennessee's worst games from last season, whether it's Cleveland, Cincinnati, Green Bay, and you just made that the first game of the season, you would have a similar kind of like hopeless feeling about the season. But ultimately, those games weren't really indicative of how the season as a whole went. So, I think we'll be fine. I think if after 3 or 4 games you start to see the same issues really plaguing the team, then you can start panicking. But at this point, I'm willing to just say it was a bad game and move on to Seattle.
Agreed. Just have that Belichickian mindset. We're on to Seattle. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
But I will give credit where credit's due on Arizona's part. And I wanted to mention this just quickly. They'll get the credit they deserve, but quickly, because I don't give them too much credit. And that's of their pass rush and just how amazing they're going to be if they can continue this kind of trend. And you can really tell that the addition of J.J. Watt has helped elevate that and even let Chandler Jones just run wild. Do you think this is something that can be sustainable for them? And should NFL teams that have to match up with them really worry about the Cardinals?
Well, I hope it ends up being sustainable, because if their pass rush ends up falling off, then that doesn't look very good for Tennessee. But I mean, I was definitely wrong about Chandler Jones. My opinion on him was that he was kind of just at the tail end of his career. I don't want to say washed up, but last season he didn't look like the same player that he's been throughout his career. And yeah, I mean, he played great. And then when you can have JJ Watt as that number two pass rusher, he's not the player that he was when he was winning Defensive Player of the Year, but when he be that number two instead of that number one, yeah, that's a that's a pretty brutal pass rush for sure.
And also on the offensive side of the ball, Kyler Murray just really coming out and have a showing, especially against our defense where he scrambled around for what it seemed like forever and then finally hitting his target.
Mhm.
Do you think right now, and I know it's early, but especially with the way things are going, that he could possibly be in the MVP talks if he continues this kind of trend?
Well, yeah, I mean, if he continues this level of production, he'll definitely be in the MVP talks. You know, you need to see it against a defense that's better than Tennessee's, but I thought Kyler played excellent. I mean, yeah, just being able to escape the pocket, keep his eyes down the field, and throw accurately. Really good game from Kyler for sure.
And getting back to the Titans, and we did have breaking news earlier today, and it would look like Bagley has been released, and Tennessee is once again in the kicking market, and it would look like Randy Bullock will be taking that position off the practice squad. And I've had a few minutes to watch a few of his highlights, nothing serious film wise, but you just kind of get the sense that he's just really just filling in, just what Bagley was, but hopefully that he'll be better. Do you think that at some point John Robinson has to just think I've got to start drafting kickers now, where I can't figure it out in free agency or anybody that's on the market, so maybe I should start evaluating kickers a little more seriously at this point?
I don't know. If you look back at kickers that have been drafted, there doesn't really seem to be any correlation between drafted kickers and undrafted kickers. You kind of just have to get lucky and like stumble into the guy. Um, I think that fingers crossed that Ficken's injury is nothing serious long term, but I think they might have found the guy with Ficken. I'm not a special teams guy. Like my ability to evaluate kickers is like, did they make the field goal or not? So my whereas I think I can give some good perspective on most positions. With kicker, it's like, I don't know, man, just find a guy that makes the damn field goals.
Well, it definitely seems they go after guys that have kind of had some wear and tear and a little damage. And that's the same with Bullock, especially last year. It was a field goal with the Chargers. After he missed the kick, he injured himself. So you already feel a little concerned right there with him handling the kicking duties. And at some point, you just feel like maybe John Robinson just can't evaluate kickers that well.
Yeah, you know, we'll see. I'm still holding out hope for Ficken, but I think I can probably give a better uh, long term analysis after this season, and if we see Ficken come back from his injury and kick the ball well, then they might have solved that issue. But if not, then yeah, it might be time to start taking shots on kickers in the sixth or seventh round.
And I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that. And it definitely seemed like also on the kicking side that Brett Kern struggled a little bit early in the game. And really, he's been one of our most consistent players. It was just very odd seeing him struggle so much with punts. Do you think it's just age showing, or is this something that will probably get fixed as the season goes on?
I'm not too worried about Brett Kern. I think he'll pick it up as the season goes on.
And I think the last thing we'll talk about here is you definitely felt the presence of David Long not being on there. That would it have made much of a difference? Probably not, but you have to feel that with a better rotation, that Long possibly could have been a difference maker. Do you think that that situation really hurt the Titans?
Well, the biggest issue that I noticed from the linebackers was that they were just not doing a good job of taking on blocks, and that's not really David Long's biggest strength. It's actually one of his weaknesses. So I'm not sure that David Long would have made a huge impact in this game. Um, the guy that I would look to is, like we mentioned, Monty Rice. I think that if the coaching staff can develop that trust in him to where he can start taking some of Rashawn Evans snaps, I think that's the best case scenario.
And also adding to that, it was just odd seeing that Rashad Weaver wasn't even on the lineup. So do you think that was possibly a late minute scratch due to injury, or that they just felt that they didn't need him?
I think I read that it wasn't injury related. Um, you know, yeah, I'm not sure with Rashad Weaver. I think that to me, if you can't generate a pass rush with Autry, Simmons, Landry, and Bud Dupree, I'm not sure that Weaver's going to make a huge difference on that front. Um, I thought I've never figured out how to pronounce his name. However you pronounce his name, number 92. I thought he played really bad, especially in run defense, which is I think Rashad Weaver's biggest strength. So I thought he could have been an upgrade there. But we'll see as the season moves on. It could have just been a matchup thing that they didn't want him active, and I'm sure special teams also had a big role to play in that as well.
Agreed. And you definitely have to feel, especially with the trip coming up to Seattle, historically we've never done well going west, and there's a lot of concern there. But it always seems like, especially in games where we've struggled somewhere, we end up bouncing back pretty well. So do you feel a little better knowing that there might be an opportunity where we'll actually perform at the level we were supposed to yesterday?
Yeah, well, Seattle, Russell Wilson offers a similar skill set to Kyler Murray as far as the ability to do things outside of the pocket and just have a great arm. But Seattle has a much worse pass rush than Arizona, so I think if we're looking for the pass protection to bounce back, this is the game to do it. And yeah, I mean, Mike Vrabel, for whatever criticisms you want to have of him, he has shown the ability to get his team to bounce back after a poor performance. So yeah, I mean, I think that going out west on the road to Seattle is obviously a difficult matchup, but I think there's a good chance they'll be able to bounce back.
Agreed. And I would also say that Seattle's offensive line has been very wishy-washy at times.
Uh-huh.
They either show up or Russell Wilson's running for his life. So if we can generate any kind of pass rush against him, I would say that would definitely change the outlook on that game.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, all right, guys, we've broken down all that. Deep breath. It's over. We're going to Seattle. No more Arizona. It's done. So we'll take a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, we're going to break down week 2. I'll have all the games on tap, and No Flags Film will pick his. I'll pick mine, and we'll just see how it goes. More than likely, we'll both have good records at the end of it when it's said and done. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour. We'll be back in 30. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop. Thank you for joining us Monday evening. My guest with me is No Flags Film. We appreciate you for being on the show today, buddy. We're having a great time.
Yes, sir.
And we've definitely had a lot of great insight. I love stat guys. I love guys that break down film. You're definitely my kind of guy that I love having on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, all right, guys. It's a little early, but it's a Monday show for me. And I'm going to break down all week 2's games because I might as well do it because I've got nothing else to do for the week. That's just how I roll. So let me just bring up the schedule. And we will look at all these good week 2 matchups. And surprisingly, hopefully I've got the right one on. Otherwise, this will be pretty embarrassing. We'll shrink over here.
Thank you for...
Nope, wrong one. That's just the fun of a live show. Let's try again. I probably should have labeled these. So, live and learn. Shrink down. There we go. All right, so we've got the week 2 matchups right here. And we're going to break them down as they go. All right, so starting for Thursday, September 16th, we have got on the NFL Network at 8:20, the New York Football Giants at the Washington Football Team. So, No Flags, who do you like in this matchup?
I'll probably go with Washington. I think that the biggest weakness for the Giants is their offensive line, and that's pass rush is Washington's biggest strength. So I'll go Washington there.
I will take the opposite, and I will go with the Giants. I feel like Daniel Jones is going to have a pretty good game. I think if Saquon Barkley can get his feet under him and they just let him loose, I think he'll have a pretty good day if they can just chip away at that defense. Easier said than done, but I'll stick with that. So moving on to our Sunday slate. At 1 p.m. on Fox, we've got the New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers. No Flags, who do you like?
Let's see. I'll go with the Panthers. I actually think they're pretty evenly matched, and I'll give the Panthers the edge just being at home.
Well, once again, I'm going to have to take the opposite, and I will go New Orleans. And this was really a toss-up for me. I liked what Carolina had. I definitely enjoyed the fact that Sam Darnold had a pretty good showing, especially against the Jets. And you always know you can't take week 1 for everything, but I definitely feel really good about how Jameis Winston came out and showed up. It'll be a pretty good test on the road for them, but I will stick with New Orleans and go with that in a very tight game. Also on 1 o'clock on Fox, you have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the Chicago Bears. I think this will be a pretty good matchup. Who do you got, No Flags?
I'll go Chicago Bears for a pretty similar reason. I think they're both not great teams, but I'll give Chicago the edge being at home. I think they bounce back from the Rams game.
We are definitely going in opposite directions. I have got this marked as my upset of the week. I like what Cincinnati did with Minnesota. I love the aggressive play calling. Joe Burrow, once again, I think if the offensive line can keep him protected, he'll show that he can be an elite quarterback with time. But with a pretty good defense, I feel that this is going to be a very good matchup. But Cincinnati will get the upset, and Chicago will once again have to go back to the board and start rethinking things, and they may just possibly move on and get Justin Fields in the game much sooner. Our next matchup is a 1 o'clock game on CBS, and it will be the Houston Texans at the Cleveland Browns. No Flags, the floor is yours.
Well, this might be our first agreement, but I'm going to go Browns. I think you've got one of the best rosters against one of the worst rosters. So, yeah, I'll go Browns.
Oh, man. We're once. No, I'm just playing. I'm not going to do that.
I was about to say, man, this might be rigged.
No, I don't have that much confidence in Houston. I'm glad they won a game, but it's not going to be an easy road from there. I think Cleveland has a chip on their shoulder. They lost a game they should have won with Kansas City. Poor little Houston. Say a prayer for them. They're going to get beat down. This is my lock of the week. Moving to our next game, 1 o'clock on Fox, you've got the Los Angeles Rams at the Indianapolis Colts. No Flags film. Who's going to get the win here?
I'm going Rams here. I think that the Colts are pretty suspect in their secondary, and I think Sean McVay and Matt Stafford are able to take advantage of that.
Once again, we're in agreement. So we've shifted the tide on picks. I love the Rams' defense here. I think they're going to expose Carson Wentz. I think with a lack of a playmaking receiver that's not T.Y. Hilton, and unfortunately they don't have T.Y. Hilton, the Rams are going to have a field day on them, and Matthew Stafford will have a pretty good day against their secondary. Also, with a 1 o'clock game on CBS, we have the Denver Broncos at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you got to admit, Jacksonville looks like they're under turmoil even before the season started. Whispers of Urban Meyer and his coaching ability and how it's just disliked right now. You kind of get the sense that things might start falling apart from the inside before this thing really gets off the ground. So, No Flags, who do you like?
Yeah, I like the Broncos here. I just saw a tweet. I'm not sure how reliable this person is, but they have a blue check mark that said that Urban Meyer was considering resigning because his heart just wasn't in it. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going Broncos here.
We're sweeping the board. 3 we disagreed, and now 3 we agree. I like Denver. I think Teddy Bridgewater will have a pretty good game against this lackluster Jacksonville team, but I think Trevor Lawrence will do well as he gets the opportunity to play, but it's going to be a learning curve, especially with that tough defensive front. Also, a 1 o'clock game on Fox. We have a pretty good matchup of AFC rivals. We have the Buffalo Bills traveling to the Miami Dolphins. No Flags, who do you like in this slugfest?
I think the Bills bounce back here, and the Dolphins take a step back. So, yeah, I'll go Buffalo Bills.
And it's 4 in a row. I will go Buffalo as well, and I will even go as far as saying this game will go into overtime. I think it'll be a matchup of defenses. I think Miami's defense is vastly underrated. But with Tua Tagovailoa, we're still trying to figure out what he is. So I think you'll see a low-scoring affair. But Buffalo gets the win in overtime. Our other 1 o'clock game on CBS, the New England Patriots are traveling to East Rutherford, New Jersey, to face the New York Giants, or the New York Jets. My apologies. And I'll let you go ahead and call this one, but I'm pretty sure I know who you're going with.
Yeah, I'm going Patriots here.
Likewise, I will go with New England as well. Still don't know too much about this Jets team. I know Corey Davis had a pretty good day receiving, but I still think they have a lot of holes to fill, and it's going to be a little while before this team's really competitive. Our other 1 o'clock game on Fox will consist of the San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams having very surprising showings. But who do you like in this matchup, No Flags?
Yeah, the Niners are actually my pick to make the NFC Championship game, and so yeah, I'm going with San Francisco here.
I will go with San Francisco as well. I was very impressed with the way Garoppolo handled himself. I think they're going to try and transition Trey Lance in as soon as they can. But if they can get Garoppolo playing at a high level, he could possibly be a trade target for this possible midseason break coming up. Then moving on to our next game, another 1 o'clock on CBS, we have the Las Vegas Raiders taking a trip to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I always love when these two get together, even when if they're both bad. It's always just a historic match. There's a lot of history in it. It's almost like watching the Red Sox and the Yankees, just from a historic standpoint. So who do you like in this one, No Flags?
I think that Pittsburgh's pass rush is going to overwhelm the Raiders, and I'll take the Steelers.
No argument here. I will go with Pittsburgh as well. I do think Ben Roethlisberger will take a step back, but I think their running game will bail them out in this one. Then we get to the 4 o'clock games. And at 4:05 on Fox, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking a trip to the Arizona Cardinals. No Flags, I'm pretty sure, I think I know who you're going to go with on this one, but I'll let you give your opinion.
I don't think you do. I think that the Vikings actually bounce back and steal one from the Cardinals.
Ooh, daring. I like that. But I will go opposite, and I will say Arizona will take a little step back, but not by much. I think their defense will give Kirk Cousins fits, and he won't like that. Then our next afternoon game, we will have a matchup between the Atlanta Falcons taking a trip to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4:05 on Fox. No Flags, who do you got?
I got the Bucks here, and I don't think it's very close.
I will go with the Buccaneers as well. Tom Brady just loves rubbing any kind of success he has against the Falcons in their face, so no surprise there. Then our next 4:25 matchup on CBS will be the Dallas Cowboys taking a trip to Los Angeles against the Chargers. Who do you got, No Flags?
I think this will be a good game, but I'm actually going to go the Cowboys. I really liked what I saw from Dak Prescott, and I think the defense bounces back.
No argument here. I will go with the Cowboys as well, but surprisingly, I see Ezekiel Elliott having a strong showing. We'll skip the Tennessee and Seattle game for last, and we'll move straight to the Sunday night game, a matchup that people have been tending to enjoy, especially since it's brought out some pretty fun results. The Kansas City Chiefs heading to the Baltimore Ravens. Who do you got in this one, No Flags?
Well, it's tough since we haven't seen the Ravens play yet, but I'll just kind of go chalk here and pick the Chiefs.
I would agree with that. It's hard to see what we're going to see tonight with Baltimore playing the Raiders on Monday Night Football, which I will go the Ravens in that game. But for the one in week 2 against Kansas City, I will go with you and say Kansas City as well. And then your Monday night matchup, it's always an interesting one, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Who do you got, No Flags?
I think the Packers bounce back and win pretty easily over the Lions.
I think the Green Bay offense is going to be stale once again. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair, especially even with a Detroit team that really doesn't know what they want to be, and they're still trying to figure things out. But I think Green Bay gets the win. And we swing back to the game of interest, the one that everybody wants to hear about. The Tennessee Titans taking a trip to the Seattle Seahawks, matching up with one of the premier quarterbacks in the league. No Flags, give us your take on what's going to happen heading to the Emerald City.
Well, I think Tennessee bounces back and plays a lot better, but I'm still going to go the Seahawks, just being at home. And I think Russell Wilson is able to have his way with the Titans defense.
All right. I, of course, will go with the Titans. Yes, they're going on the road. Yes, it's in the West. Yes, they've struggled historically there. But I see this as an offensive matchup. I think Vrabel's going to basically hand the reins to Ryan Tannehill and let him do what he feels necessary to do with this offense. I think it's going to be an offensive matchup. It's going to be a slugfest at the end, but I think Tennessee prevails, holding on to a slim lead. I would go Tennessee 31, Seattle 28. And that is all of our Week 2 picks. And we are back on. And I would love to thank No Flags Film for joining me tonight. We've had a great time. It's been very enjoyable having you on the show. And I wanted to let you give a chance to shout out to the fans where to find you if they're looking for you. And I know they will be, especially with all the great insights you've given tonight.
Yeah, once again, YouTube No Flags Film and Twitter No Flags Film. Thank you for having me. It's been a great time. And go Titans.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I want to thank our audience for joining us and making the time to watch the show. Because of you, it continues to grow and be a success. And I just can not express how happy I am to have you on and just continue to come back and support the show. It's great. And I will continue to keep bringing this content out and give you the best Titans experience and NFL stat show that you deserve. So, once again, for my friend No Flags Film, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a great show, and we're out of time. I thank you for joining us, and don't forget, if you love the show, help it grow. Please like and subscribe today on Twitter, on Facebook, on Twitch, and we are on TikTok as well. So make sure you check all those out at our showing at the Power Hour 615. So once again, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you for watching the Power Hour. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more content. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at the Power Hour 615. Thank you, and have a great night.